Hey y'all. Before we get into this episode of the Scrapyard, it's Xavier. I'd just like to say this was recorded before the Overwatch League announced the cancellation of all homestands in March and April. And the Overwatch League has announced that games will resume next week, March 21st. They will all be played online, and every team will play. And they'll all be split into regions based probably around like Asia, West Coast, East Coast to kind of help with LAN issues. So a lot of the information in this podcast is not super relevant, but there's still some really good discussion, and this was recorded like a day or two before everything went super crazy with the coronavirus. So stay safe out there, y'all, and I look forward to talking about Overwatch next week. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Scrapyard. I'm your host, Nathan Leopolder, joined here by Taylor.
Hi.
And Xavier.
Daylight saving time got us recording in daylight.
Today, we're talking about the Overwatch League, specifically how there will not be an Overwatch League soon, but we're also going to recap Week 5 and talk about Week 6. Roll intro. Do you come from a land down under? So, more coronavirus news as the London homestand is slowly coming closer and closer to being cancelled, which we will find out about in the coming days. And the UC Berkeley campus has moved to online classes only through March, which means those two homestands are both in big danger of being cancelled, and they are during the same week. Yikes.
Yeah, so that's a big oof. I mean, Italy, just shut down all their events?
Italy has
quarantined the entire country.
Yeah.
Quarantined the entire country.
I think it's Paris that shut down all events. London's probably gonna do that. UC Berkeley just did their thing.
UC Berkeley has shut down all classes until March 29th. So literally the day.
But the campus is still open,
Yeah.
so it's not like they're closing. Teachers still have to go in. It's like business as usual, except hey,
There's still students living on campus wandering around. It's not
kids
like,
just gotta stay home. Yeah.
if you don't basically don't meet in a classroom.
Yeah, so, and I mean, classes are still meeting, too. There's lab classes still going on, PE classes. It's just your shitty math class, why...
Congrats, now it's online.
Yeah, why have you come in for that? So realistically, those homestands, the Shock homestand is for sure probably getting canceled.
Uh-huh.
If it doesn't get canceled, that means that, the outbreak has been pretty sufficiently contained in the Bay Area, which, I mean, could happen. I mean, we don't know. The numbers in China are kind of falling, but obviously they had to go through a peak before they hit a downturn.
Yeah.
And we are just starting, so we haven't hit a peak and then a
Yeah.
fall. However,
Not to mention, while we're recording this, the cruise line just parked itself in Oakland, so...
Yeah, so, you got people getting help and all that stuff. So, it's fine. But it's probably getting canceled. But I really think that it seems like all the players, when you hear, people be like, oh, I asked Logix on the stream about something. It seems like the players are pretty confident that they're going to get to play soon.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes me definitely think they're going to do online games sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
They just don't know the exact particulars of everything, so they can't really announce it because it's not 100% finalized. Everything's official. But the players seem fairly confident that they're going to get to play sooner rather than later. So, but those homestands are most likely getting canceled. If they aren't canceled, cool. But I don't see them not being canceled or not seriously hurting people actually attending. However, the League of Legends Chinese League, the LPL, is in week 2 of their games, and they're having them completely online. Mm-hmm. And it took them a while to get everything kind of official and ready to go for it to be online and them to actually start playing games. So I think the Overwatch League is on a similar timeline. But the LPL is having games, and everyone's excited. Everyone's just excited to watch professional League of Legends. So I think a lot of people in the Overwatch League might be overthinking how it's going to impact viewership. Because at the end of the day, people are just looking forward to seeing their teams play.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they're not in the homestands and they're just played online, fucking okay. People will still watch it.
Right.
So I do expect maybe after this homestand, them to be hey, here's kind of how the games are going to go after, this week. We're going to reintroduce some teams. Or maybe they're just waiting for the shock homestand. They're just like, hey, we already canceled all these homestands. Let's just wait for the next time Pacific teams will play.
Right.
And then just start making up the games. You could play the games during the week because their schedules are all weird anyway.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do because, the outbreak is probably going to just keep spreading. It has to peak before it goes down. So
Especially here in the Bay Area, because there's been only maybe one death, yeah. And again, that was in Santa Clara County, which isn't Contra Costa, which isn't where Berkeley is, but it's still
it's close enough.
It's jumping through schools and through all that.
It hasn't peaked yet, but
Yeah.
I mean,
it will.
probably.
So, hopefully they just start playing online games and be like, okay. It's such a weird season. I don't think anybody's going to hold it against Blizzard.
Yeah.
It's not like one homestand got canceled because of, harsh rain or something like that.
Yeah, no.
And then the Overwatch League completely didn't know how to handle it.
Yeah, they're doing the best with what they have, and it's an evolving situation. It's not like there was a disaster or something like that. If there
You
was
know what's happening.
a tsunami or an earthquake or a tornado or something, it's very easy to be like, okay, how do we move on from here? But it's very hard when it's something so unpredictable as a virus, where it's it will probably spread. We should keep people out, but how do we, what do we do? Or will it even, maybe it'll go away by this point, but not by this point. How do you make those decisions?
They're 15 contingency plans deep right now.
Yeah, exactly. They don't.
They have to have backup plan on top of backup plan on top of
Yeah,
backup
it's
plan.
a very hard moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had games this week to actually talk about.
That's true.
And unlike our pessimism last week, these games were really damn good.
And I think everything had to do with the hero pools and being able to have people not be able to play McCree, Widow, Rhine, Moira.
Yeah, this week's hero pools were incredible because we saw it was almost all dive, but we saw Tracer Soldier as a big
such
comp.
a fun thing.
Yeah, we saw a lot of Tracer Sombra, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed getting to see these players kind of liven up, and I think this hero pool, compared to maybe next week's, how that might shake out, I think this week's really enabled some of the best players to get to play what they're really good at, and it enabled for us to see really exciting pop-off moments from the best players, and that's something that you need. So I think these hero pools really worked out, and I enjoy them. There is some concern from coaches in the league. The Washington Justice coach talked about how the hero pools were really hard this first time and stressful on the coaching staff, and none of them got a lot of sleep because they were trying to figure things out. I think it was another coach that talked to the Washington Post, or Boston's coach, I think it was, and he was talking about hero pools being difficult to kind of adapt with, and it was a hellish thing for being a coach. And that is a very real concern, but I think, one, chill. It's going to be hard.
Step 1, relax, guys.
Yeah, but also, you'll see, I think this is just the first week of teams trying to be, super perfect with these hero pools, when at the end of the day, if you're playing 2 games in a weekend, you adjust. And it really rewards being able to make halftime adjustments and in-between game adjustments, because you look at Paris, they got dunked on by Houston, but then they come out the next day and beat Philly in a 5-map series. And a lot of that was, Paris looking at what they did wrong against Houston, saying, oh, our interpretation of the meta kind of wasn't correct.
Sure.
And then come in the next day with a different strategy. And it worked. And that level of adaptability, something that the Shock show, something that the Vancouver Titans have potential to do, and other teams have shown that we don't see in these heroes pools, it really makes it look good because it's going to reward teams that are able to switch things up fast and not just perfect a meta and grind it out and spend all time min-maxing. Sometimes you just need to have a really good strategy and be like, oh, this happened and we weren't expecting it, let's switch it up.
And I think that's why we got to see so many games that normally you would be like, that team shouldn't have won, and then they go ahead and they win. Even, like, maps where you're like, oh, this team shouldn't win this at all. Like, Washington won the first map against New York or something. And it's like, oh, they probably shouldn't have won this, but they ended up winning it. And I'm pretty sure even Florida had some, like, sneaky things going on where it's just like, oh, so this is what the hero pool really stands for. It's these teams that get to just have a moment to, like, be like, okay, let's do this. Let's play what we're good at. And even if we're not good at it, we can always fall back on, you know, some of the easier heroes in the pool and still get away with wins. And I think that's exactly what, going into the future, if there isn't homestands, will keep things interesting and keep fans kind of engaged.
Yeah, so Paris had the biggest weekend of all by beating Philly. And in this game, we talked about last week how we're going to learn a lot about Philly as a team. And I think the biggest thing we learned is that they're both really good. Like, it further validated the fact that these are two top-level teams. Mm-hmm. Regardless, it validated Paris is going to be able to stick around until Sparkle comes back. But also, they're kind of fine without Sparkle right now. Because you look at how this game watched out, and the first day they played a lot of Nico, and Nico didn't really work out. And so they moved to an XC Soon DPS line that just shat on everyone. Like, Soon.
It was so good.
And I enjoy this because poor Soon. I'm pretty sure we spent the entirety of last season on this podcast talking shit about the dude.
I'm pretty sure you spent the entirety of last season talking shit about Soon.
I did, because he was trash. But now, similar to Blase, you know, we get to see Soon play Soon things, and we set this in Stage 4, when he outdueled Linkser. When Soon gets to play Soon stuff, he's really, really good. Just don't ask him to
not do
that.
Stuff.
Yeah, he's not that type of player. And this game, his Tracer was excellent. And the DPS line of XC and Soon vastly outplayed Carpe and Ivy. And I think the thing with Ivy is his Mei is hella clean. And he's a solid player. I just think you're really missing probably Hisu, who's underage right now, but he's another flashy rookie DPS player that is better on hit scan when you need to play these hit scan type, double hit scan type compositions. A lot of teams are running the Soldier Tracer. You're going to need somebody that can run that Soldier. And Ivy's not that player. Hisu is that kind of player. And EQO clearly wasn't that kind of player because they didn't really play him like that. But in terms of Paris, just on how good they were very, very good. I really enjoyed Paris, and it gave me a lot of confidence that they are a premier team to watch because XC is so exciting as a player.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they have heart because that map 5, that was a time. That was a moment where it was, you can quit right now. Like, nobody's gonna hate you if you lose this. And they kept fighting and kept fighting and kept fighting and turned it back.
It was basically whose supports lasted the longest. And that really proves something about these teams and how they've set up and how supportive they are of each other. Not just, like, the support players keeping everybody alive, but, like, how quickly, like, I'm pretty sure that they said that the two supports changed to Lucio at the exact same time, and all it took was Paris's Lucio to get ult faster. And that just shows, like, it was in those moments, like, that overtime push to try and win the map that you're like, oh, this is what they're talking about when they're talking about, like, the skill of getting your ult. And I was like, this is what they're talking about. It made it very obvious when you're watching to be like, oh, okay, here it is.
Yeah, especially with the Lucio switching, there's a level of focus and freedom that you have as a player in a team to enable that. For both teams to decide, Lucio's the pick right now, switch to it and just be like, hey, I'm going to fucking do this, guys.
Right.
There's a level of focus that you need to, keep it in overtime and not lose, not step off the point. And it's not as easy as it sounds because we've seen plenty of teams this season step off the point and lose something. So to be able to maintain that focus of it's overtime, we need to stay on the point, but we need to survive, and also the freedom of being able to switch to Lucio and know that everybody on your team is on the same page. Mm. That's something that you see with the top teams.
Right.
We saw that in the only game the Shock really played this season, where Sinatra switched to Doomfist, and it was one of those moments where he said after the game, I switched to Doomfist and I just told my team, hey, just trust me, it's going to work. And it worked. And that's brilliant, but I don't think that's something that every team and every player has the ability to do.
Of course.
And so it really goes to show how well coached these teams are, that they're able to make those split-second decisions, and how ahead of the rest of the teams in the Atlantic Division they are. Because you look at some of the other teams in the Atlantic Division, and they don't appear to be super well coached or anywhere near their skill level in terms of mechanical skill.
Yeah.
We're not really going to talk about them today, but Toronto is a team like that, where they have a lot of individual talent, but they're not super well coached.
Yeah.
Or they're not... No, I don't know how well coached they are, but they're not organized yet.
Yeah. And something you always talk about is, and, well, obviously compare to, is sports itself. And I think going into the future of Overwatch League, as long as, you know, things keep going well after possibly having to not have any homestands for the whole season, I do think that in the future I would like to see more, like, kind of the coach interviews, and just more of the, like, okay, so when your team is down and out, what do you tell them to do? Because it's not like when they're on the mics, the coach isn't hearing all that and back in the room, and, like, the staff itself isn't hearing that and not giving, like, in between games, like, okay, you know, in the spawn room, hey, here's what you need to do, fix this going through. Like, there's no way that they're not getting that kind of input. They're just going in there with, like, game plan and no extra input, because that's not how any kind of sport really works. There's always somebody calling, hey, let's talk over what the game plan is. Okay, go back out there, go. So I would love to just see more, like, after the game, like, okay, Coach Krusty, what made you allow Sinatra to pick Doomfist? And just have him say, just trust me.
Yeah, there's definitely...
there's room for something like that, where I think it'd be really interesting at this point, where you only get to see so many teams, that it's like, okay, so what is making Philly and Paris, his coaches, stand out against a Houston coach or the Boston coaches?
I can add on to that, because the website I write for, OverwatchLeague.com, there was a feature on Philadelphia's coaching, and they're changing coaching philosophy, and there was a very specific piece of information where they're switching more from big team game reviews to more individualized coaching. And when they rebuilt this roster and went into the season, they thought of themselves as an expansion team rather than the former grand finalists, rather than the team that got bounced in the first round of the playoffs that they were last year. And that shows to me very good coaching, because they understand what works for their players, and it's clearly working for their players, this individualized coaching, instead of just these casting a wider net and helping everybody. And with Philly, and with Paris, I don't know anything about their organization, but what I do know is their head coach and a lot of their coaching staff are from Element Mystic. And everybody talks about how ridiculously smart of a coach Rush is. And there's a reason why Sparkle would only sign with a team that would sign his coach. Because
he wants to win.
He's a brilliant coach. And you can see it. You can see it with how well organized and smart Paris's games are.
And if I'm remembering correctly with stuff we've talked about, Paris is also the team that hired the woman coach, right?
Yeah, Avala from Washington. Avala. And from what everybody says, she's also just a brilliant person to have in the locker room. So Paris definitely paid out a lot of good money for their coaching staff, and it worked out. And especially when everybody was saying how questionable them having like a mixed language roster was.
Sure.
That shit didn't matter.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And to piggyback again off of putting money into coaches, I feel like some of the organizations are still thinking so much on putting money into the player. Because sure, to quote Xavier, Prophet is amazing.
He is.
And he is a god. And he's an amazing player. Surefour is like our team, like our podcast icon or, mascot. As you can see, not so much with Prophet, but with Surefour, if the coaching isn't there, he doesn't become this godsend player. Sure, he's still an amazing player, but, like, he's just that. There's no, like, here's how you become an even better. There's no growth. And I feel like that's something that needs to be thought of more in the future, where it's like, okay, you see the trades with players and all that, and, like, them getting rid of coaches, hiring new coaches, but you never see, like, coaches as the biggest thing that's getting brought in or out. And I think that should be a focus for going further into these seasons.
Yeah, and bouncing off the coaching conversation and just organizational stability, Boston.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, so Boston, they got shat on this weekend by Atlanta and Washington. They at least won one, so they basically went 1-6.
Right.
In terms of maps this week.
Oh.
After after a week or like a couple weeks where people were somewhat optimistic about Boston.
Oh my god, my poor baby.
I feel like we're falling back down to earth where it's like, oh yeah, Boston's bad.
Yeah, Boston's not great.
But they gave us that one legendary game.
Yeah.
The one good game.
But I think the issue with Boston is, again, they just don't seem to have a leader on the team. Like, you have all of this amazing talent and support and backup, but who's going to truly be the face, the leader of your team? You don't have a true duo, and, like, you're trying to kind of force duos, but it's not really working out in any way that would make a huge impact on the league.
I mean, here's the, like, fucked up part is their roster right now is not that great, but you have... I don't think their roster is any worse than fucking London.
Sure. Yeah.
Their roster isn't that much worse. I guess they are missing a dude like Glister, who is at the top of a lot of leaderboards. However, their roster isn't dog shit.
No, it's not.
They
it's
have
far from it.
They have things that they can do, especially with some of their top players. Jerry is still a solid player. Mm-hmm. Color Hex is proven in the league. And then you have Myungbong, who is one of the top rookies this year. So you have things to do. You have people. You have a culture. You have players that seem to enjoy playing with each other. And that's getting you halfway there.
Right.
You have a roster that seem to like each other. A lot of teams would love that. Then you're fucking up by what appears to just be coaching. Because they don't seem to be a well-coached team. They didn't seem to have a real good grasp of the meta this week. Mm-hmm. They didn't seem prepared. And they got ran over because of that. And that's something that you do have to blame on coaching and all that. Because good coaching should elevate an average team. And this is an average team. We look at Houston, who we'll talk about in a bit. Houston, fucking dog shit team, and they looked pretty good this week.
Yeah, and Boston's doing that Florida thing where it's like every week there's some kind of announcement like Boston dropped somebody a while ago. And then Axiom has like a medical...
Yeah, Axiom's getting surgery. They signed Halo, put him in over Swimmer.
Also, looking at the like stats on like Overwatch League, there's only 3 people who have stats right now. And I don't know if that's just it messing up and not showing me what everybody else did, but I like to believe that only Axiom, Color Hex, and Fusions did anything the entire game.
Shit, maybe. I don't know. Maybe.
Like, I physically don't know. It literally says 0 for Jerry, Swimmer, Brussen, Muffin, Halo, and Yongbung.
No, they definitely did stuff. Like, they weren't...
But I'm like, there's no way that they did 0 and everything.
It's
like,
symbolically representative of how they play.
yeah.
Right.
I'm like, what is going on here? But, again, Boston just doesn't have a big... Like, don't get me wrong. Muffin has the personality, because every time they walk out and get booed... He's the one that's like, yeah, bring it on, bring it on.
He's a fine player. He's
But
okay.
But they don't have like something to back up this like great personality. They don't have a storyline going. Where it's like you see Atlanta do that shit, like Dogman and Baby Bay do that. You're like, yeah, that's Atlanta. Washington gets super excited and walk out, and they all have sunglasses like Stratus, and you're like, yeah, that's Washington Justice for you. But
like at this point, they're an easy win. And once we get later in the season, they're going to be an even easier win. Because we're going to have a lot of Pacific teams coming in that are just been fucking sitting there twiddling their thumbs and are ready to just dog stomp every other team in the league, and Boston's going to be in the way.
yeah,
It's going to be really sad. But with Boston, a lot of Boston fans are like calling for their coaches' heads. They want Mineral fired. They want Huck fired. They want a whole new management system. And like, I don't blame them. Because last season was dog shit.
I mean, it's not even fair that, like, this week, the March 15th, the closing game for Florida Mayhem, because it's their homestand, is Florida Mayhem versus Boston.
Yeah, easy win.
And it's an easy win. You know, March 14th, where Florida's going against Paris, not as good. But if hero pools come to their favor again, perhaps they are.
Like, what fucking hero pool will come to their favor? Like, this week, probably should have been fine. Next week, like, cool. If the meta is the exact same as it's been with, like, some May Reaper shit, what is Boston going to do about that?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I don't see a meta that shakes out where you're like, oh, okay, this is their time. Because
No one
they're
is there.
overmatched in all circumstances. They're not well coached enough to figure things out.
They've done what we said, Dallas or Houston, one of the Texas teams, we said that they've been lapped by the rest of the league. They're definitely, like... They're 2 laps down. Like, they're not even a lap behind, because at least Houston and Dallas have come out on top in some of their, performances. Even Dallas, you're like, oh, they don't look that bad. They lost, but they had tough games. Houston won a game. That's all Houston fans need to be like, yeah, we're good now.
And the thing with Toronto is they are bad, but, like, I feel like I understand why they're bad. It's just a lack of cohesion. But you look at their individual moments and certain moments in games, and you see what Toronto will be in a couple months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's encouraging. You don't see any potential growth for Boston. Boston's not a team that you buy low, sell high. You don't buy.
Yeah.
Toronto's a team you'll do that because you at least see the theory of how they work.
To quote Nathan, I believe he said Boston is the gateway team into the league. You have to go through this shitty team to get put on a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, Boston... We went through this a couple weeks ago. Boston's cut roster is a playoff team.
The highest...
It is! It really is. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can literally make a playoff team out of Boston's cut players.
Yeah, so it's...
Never forget what Boston did. They had Krusty.
They had everybody.
They had everyone.
Yeah.
So
going back to that, it just proves. And then, since we've been shitting on Boston long enough, let's talk about Houston, who won another game, 3-0'd Paris. And mind you, when they 3-0'd Paris in the entire YouTube chat, it was just Houston beats Paris equals them over Philly. And I'm like, first of all, don't get yourselves worked up like that, ladies and gentlemen. There's no way in hell.
This isn't some Naruto character power scaling shit.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah, like, calm down.
Houston's going Super Saiyan. Right?
So Houston is now 2-5. Are they better? No.
Yes.
No, I'm not going to say they're not better. They are better. But it's more like what we said would help Houston helped Houston. Letting them play what they want to play and then having other teams get locked off of the roles that they have powerhouses on.
It's this wild concept.
Just let Dante play Tracer and Sombra.
It's this crazy concept that you need to be top 500, coaching for 3 years, level knowledge to let your best players play what they're good at. Who would have thought? Who would have thought letting Blase do Blase things and Dante do Dante things works out? Who would have imagined that Muma getting to play Winston was a good thing? It's baffling to me. And quite frankly,
baffling.
It's fucking breaking his mind.
like I don't, I've never been allowed to think this big-brained before. Letting your best players do what they do good at. If I was coaching the Los Angeles Lakers right now, and I was thinking, damn, what would I do if I had LeBron James on my team? I'm going to have LeBron James run off screens and catch and shoot and stand in the corner. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do, because I'm a pleb and don't understand that LeBron James should just have the ball in his hands and you win basketball games. You let Blase play Doomfist, you win Overwatch games. Dante, same thing. And Muma, everybody was shitting on Muma. He's a bad Ryan, but he's always been a good Winston. So yeah, in a dive meta, Houston's going to be a fine team. Are they the best team in the world? No one's saying that. But Houston suffered in the first few weeks by not knowing what to do with their roster. And the meta was situated in a way where it was hard to do the Doomfist bullshit every map.
Right.
Because eventually you're just going to get CC'd out. But now with hero pools and things are loose, yeah, Soldier Tracer is disgusting when you have Blase and Dante. Mm-hmm. It's just, what the fuck are you going to do about that?
Yeah.
So...
there's something so funny about how big of a fan base Houston has. Like, even us who shit on Houston from time to time, we probably prefer watching a Houston game, because at least when they finally get what they need to get done, you're like, oh, that was entertaining. Dallas is just sometimes drags on. No offense to Dallas fans out there, but sometimes the Dallas games just drag on. You're like, nothing interesting is even happening. At least with Houston, there's a moment where you're like, oh yeah, fuck it, why don't you just go Torbjorn?
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So Houston, it was a great win against Paris, and this shows that hero pools do
something.
Level things out, because teams are going to figure things out before. Or I think in this situation, they just said, hey, let's just trust our guys to play what they're good at. Clearly it's going to become a dive meta because of no Rhine. Let's just work this out. And Paris wasn't prepared. This coming week, I'm not entirely confident in their ability.
Because Muma can't play Wits.
But the interesting part is Lucio is banned, and I don't think a lot of teams are going to play Rhine if Lucio's not there.
Sure.
Because Lucio enables Rhine to play in certain compositions, so who the fuck knows what might happen? And Houston might be in a good position, but I just hate this idea that Houston is like the worst, or this dog shit team, or Muma's washed, or whatever, and it just amounts to this shocking idea of dudes playing what they're good at. Fucking Boston is playing what they're good at, and they suck. That's concerns. Toronto plays what they're good at and sucks right now. That's the concerning part.
Yeah.
Houston wasn't in that position where they were doing what they're good at, and the players that were able to play what they're good at, fucking Meko and Jekse, were deadlifting this team when the rest of the players didn't know how to. So just let your guys play what they're good at. But Houston, they're fine. They're gonna win some games. They're gonna lose some games. Fucking, they're not the worst team in the league. Boston isn't.
Shout out to Xavier for ranting again about a Texas team.
But it shows good coaching too.
No,
because
for
they
sure.
figured out.
Oh no, it really
they figured shit out. They didn't just run everything into the ground all the time.
I just love that every time a Texas team comes up, Xavier is just hotly passionate about it.
Because they're both fucking stupid for different reasons. And so I feel a type of way. It's them and the Gladiators. It's just a lot of just dumbass stuff that
if Xavier
people say.
If Xavier could put the team into their own split up division, he would be like Gladiators with the two Texas teams and then everybody else.
I would love an edit of just Gladiators and then Xavier fucking jump scaring the screen with the dun dun and just anger.
Just I don't know, man.
Okay.
No, I feel it though. I completely understand.
Damn.
Okay, let's move on a little bit.
Motherfuckers act like every player should be Prophet and just good at everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about week 6 since it will probably happen. But before we get into that, we want to talk about our way too early awards.
Yeah.
So Taylor and Xavier have picked an MVP candidate, or what you think is the winner of MVP, the Rookie of the Year, role stars for damage, tank, and support, and then a Sophomore of the Year. So we're going to start from the top, the big award, the MVP.
I just got a call from Missoula, Montana. Oh, that's just kind of weird.
Montana doesn't have the coronavirus yet. Maybe they're trying to hook you up.
Yeah. But you know who is the MVP? Prophet. But he hasn't played yet, and so I feel like you need to pick a different player.
So we're going off of players that have only played yet.
We're going off of legitimate predictions that can be made right now with any sort of
season
evidence.
ended right now. Who's the MVP?
Yeah. So my pick is Hanbin.
Dog shit. No, he's worthwhile. He's worthwhile.
I just figured if I was going to go because like we both have the same Rookie of the Year, so I feel like we can't award MVP and Rookie of the Year to the same person, even though it probably would happen. So I picked Hanbin because he seemed to be the person who came into the league and really just showed.
Hanbin for our MVP and Rookie of the Year.
I mean, if we're talking most valuable, Hanbin is definitely up there because his entrance into the Paris Eternal was impactful to how they play, but also he's been incredible since day one. He was better than almost everyone.
Oh yeah, and he showed and you look at a couple of the first Paris games, you're like, ooh, they're struggling a little bit, but they're winning. They're not doing too bad, but they're not the best. And as soon as Hanbin came in, it was like, oh yeah, he's the guy for that team. So that's why I picked Hanbin, because we talked about him so much in the last couple of episodes that it's like he made a true impact instead of just being whatever.
Yeah, and statistically, I mean, 22.5 elims and 8.9 final blows, which leads all tanks, is super impressive. Mm-hmm. Because even fucking Poco doesn't do that. Yeah, and Poco's on the best team, and there are a lot of really good off tanks that don't have his statistical impact. And
also, I just figured I was going with a pattern. Support, DPS, give it to a tank this year.
Bro, I guess.
Yeah.
Listen, the actual MVP's Carpe. And I don't know why, we're even kidding right now.
No.
Dude, alright,
Carpe's
the only reason I didn't put Carpe as, my MVP is because I already saw that, and you have a tendency to call me a copycat, so I went with Hanbin.
I would love the precedent of just every single one of your picks, regardless of the fact that you picked the same for Rookie of the Year. He just goes dog shit as soon as you...
Listen, alright, so Carpe, can we just talk about this motherfucker real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
My favorite thing is you have put Carpe in bold, making it look like he has already won, decided.
I just follow
when you wrote this Google Doc.
But so Carpe, he's on the best team, 9 final blows, 16 elims, and he holds the record this season for most final blows in the map. As a DPS. Mostly, just not even trying, really. He's been the best player on the best team. And that, to me, means you should be MVP. Carpe has been leagues head and shoulders above most other hit scan players, but also his impact on the Philadelphia Fusion can be understated because while Philly is an all-around really good team, what he's doing right now in the Atlantic Division
is one of a kind.
Yeah, it feels very Carpe Season 1, where he's coming in and just, if you need him to make a play, he's going to make a play. Mm-hmm. And that's so important for your team. So I think Carpe just has to be the MVP right now. He's the best player on the best team. And what he's doing right now is significant enough that he really should get that honor. So Carpe is the dude. But Rookie of the Year...
We both have picked...
Exy.
Yes. Because if there has ever been... Dog shit. No. If there has ever been a rookie that has impressed me as much as some of the rookies from the first, well, obviously everybody was a rookie, but the people who came in later in the season, like Sinatra and them, he is so insanely talented. And I'll let you do his statistics.
This motherfucker got 10.1. He leads the league in final blows per 10 minutes. 10.1. Leads the league in hero damage. leads the league in solo kills. Homeboy is the Paris Eternal.
Yeah, he's the rookie of the year, and everything that we've gushed about Paris in the last, 15, 20 minutes is all because of, Exy, Hanbin, they're rookies that are coming in, and we haven't even seen Sparkle yet, so these are
goddamn Paris.
These are great things, and I do think if we were taking it as just this part right now, these would be the dudes.
I thought about putting even Exy.
Exy could be the rookie of the year no matter what.
I mean, I was even gonna put him in MVP. I just leaned towards Carpe because experience and fucking I've seen him do it for 3 seasons. So you know, he at least gets a little bump due to just being a veteran. But Exy has been putting up ridiculous stats, and I thought this week was another giant feather in his cap when he just came out as Soldier and dominated everybody.
Yeah.
And it shows that he's not just good in that meta, he's good in this meta, he'll be good next week and the weeks after. He's an adaptable player and he's versatile, and that's important to have.
He's what Prophet is.
Yeah, he's a flexible dude, but I doubt he can play Genji or anything.
Well, yeah.
Until,
he plays Genji.
Yeah, until I'm an idiot and I'm like, oh wait, did he play Genji all in contenders exclusively? Oh damn, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Right. But Sparkle is apparently the
guy.
He's the projectile dude to Xy's hit scan.
Sure.
So, that's gonna be a stupid duo.
We'll see what we'll see.
But then
we have our damage roll stars.
And I've picked Corey, Yaki, and Baby Bear.
Actually dog shit. Not even ironically dog shit.
Look, I appreciate this choice because 2 out of 3 of those picks are on my track.
Baby Bay hasn't even completed his fucking placement matches yet in the Overwatch League.
Okay, listen here, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies, gentlemen,
oh, Jesus.
if I'm going for winning the vote of our ever so gracious moderator here, I'm going to pick the dudes that are on his team. However, it's mostly because I don't know. I just want to say Corey.
Is Roll Stars the one that's determined
All-Star.
by?
It's like the All-Star.
So it's determined by fans.
No. That's MVP. Rollstar is voted by coaches and analysts and stuff.
That was where I was going to draw the line. Where I was like, okay, you know what, Baby Bay actually makes sense. But
maybe I'll get a Rollstar vote this year. Am I technically a part of the media now? Either way, I'm voting for Prophet. I don't care.
Dude, he's Prophet.
He's the GOAT.
For what? All of it.
No, I'm not even gonna start. I'm just saying.
I don't know if you could feel it, but there's a moment in between the silence where you could feel the tension rise with Xavier.
You know who the prophet of ranked ladder seems to be? I think it's Hotba, who, if you look at combined SR on PC, I'm not 100% sure on this. I saw it a week ago, but he's up there in combined SR for tank, support, and Widow and stuff.
Right.
So apparently, Hotba can just fucking play anything.
Awesome.
Jaehoon can. Jonak can play everything too.
Anyway, I picked Corey, Yaki, and Baby Bay. I was just I know Corey for sure, and then I just picked 2 other guys.
Listen, here's the real.
Let me be honest. I'm not a DPS fan in general. I enjoy what they do. However, I did not care about this Roll Star.
Listen, here's a real.
So
DPS
let me please allow Xavier
It's
to
Carpe.
go off.
But we already talked about Carpe and Exy, so why do we need to talk about them anymore? Here was the difficult one. Do you pick Glister, who leads everything, or do you pick Corey, who also leads everything? And I went with Corey. 1, because you lean more towards experience.
I appreciate that.
I like leaning towards experience. Glister is statistically insane. But what Corey does for his team, which is why I think people picked him in Roll Stars last year, is because what he does for this team is all this team has.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day. This week, Stratus played really well and Arc played really well. The whole team is good. But when push comes to shove, it's Corey who does the heavy lifting. number 2 in hero damage. He's the hard carry for the team. He has 2 solo kills per 10 minutes, which leads the league. Most of the league has under 2 solo kills per 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's super impressive, and it just really shows how much Corey does for this team compared to every other DPS player.
Corey is a hard carry for more than one team.
Yeah.
Exactly. Corey's a god. My fantasy team is still better, but we'll get on that later.
We'll see next week.
Anyway, going on to support role stars.
These are significantly less dog shit.
Yeah, no.
But one of them is still dog shit.
Hey. So I picked Funny Astro,
Yeah.
He's really good.
Jexy, and then because I get I cheesed the system. San Francisco Shock technically played 1 game, so I picked Moth.
This motherfucker hasn't finished his placements yet.
Yeah,
This motherfucker has played 1 placement.
I know.
but we still know that Moth is still one of the greatest players in the league.
He basically played a quick play game against Dallas, and you're rating him.
Yup, he's
Listen.
a role star for this season. If it got cut right now, Moth.
So why Moth instead of, like, also putting in Sinatra for damage or fucking Hoxel for damage? Like, I'll let you live with it, though. But Funny Astro and
I'll let
Jax
you
are
live with
cool.
that. Yeah, no, hell yeah, I'm going with it.
So
I gotta keep my brand going.
So
Just
I
one
wanted-
bad pick all the time.
I wanted to pick Funny Astro, and I thought about it, but I really didn't want to give it to 2 Philly supports.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they deserve that much. But Alarm, 100%. He's the rookie of the year in my heart. But he's just not as statistically absurd as Xe has been recently. And yet again, this is the way too early awards. I think Alarm, at the end of the year, will be rookie of the year. But right now, he's not. It's some John Morant, Zion Williamson type shit.
Okay.
So, but Alarm, 11,000 healing. He leads the league in healing. 4 deaths per 10 minutes, which is actually really good.
That's amazing.
And he's on the best team, so he needs to be in there. And I think the difference between him and Funny Astro, and I looked at a lot of their stats, I just think Alarm's higher healing.
Well,
Their
yeah.
deaths are fairly the same. I just think what Alarm brings to the team in terms of playing like a veteran and just holding it down super solid is very Moth-like. Homie just fucking plays. And he just plays really well. And we finally got to see him on Zenyatta this week. And all the, he's the next Jonak shit, like, totally makes sense. Because he really did impress on Zenyatta. So I think Alarm is the dude. And that one with FD God, this is another, it's really early. And so this might be the only time I ever get to, like, acknowledge him as, like, a role star. But FD God has been Funny Astro level aggro. And I just think he's been a little better than Funny Astro, so I went with him. But he has 16.5 elims. He is the most lethal support. He leads the supports in terms of elims. 6k healing per 10 minutes. And
so he's a Moira me.
yeah, and 5 deaths. So he dies a little more, but he's also a part of like a slightly worse team, and he's a little bit more aggressive. And so I really liked him, and obviously Jexay, he is the Houston Outlaws. Without Jexay, that team falls apart. In the first few weeks, Jexay, he had a Fleta deadlift as Lucio. Fucking, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's shit.
That's he is that team, and when this team does improve, when Houston does eventually like improve to slightly below average instead of wildly below average, Jexay is going to be that dude that kind of leads the way because he's a stabilizing force for that team.
So next up we have Tank.
And I picked Poco, Hotba, and let me roll that back. I'll do Poco, Hotba, and Hanbin.
All right.
Get rid of Beast.
No, Beast was fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But like, I would support you if you stuck with it.
Yeah.
I support you in any way.
But yeah, no, that's my choice. I just think those are the. Now thinking about it, those are my top 3.
I went with Hanbin, Poco, so we have the same thing. They are the best tanks. Poco has been a revelation for the team, and Hanbin, fucking.
And his deadpan humor. Poco is hilarious.
He's an MVP conversation. But I went with Sato too,
Okay.
and I feel like you really need to reward Sato in terms of one, how impactful he's been for the Philadelphia Fusion, how much they needed him to be really good. But also why I went with him above Hotba, who was another tank that I had kind of in my noggin, is Hotbo was kind of shitty the first couple weeks.
Yeah.
It's like, it sticks with you. Hotbo's really good, but his first couple weeks were rough. New York didn't know how to play with each other. Everything looked weird, and Sato came in and made a giant impact. He will not be a role star at the end of the year, though.
Yeah.
I will bet all of my money on that. But right
Full
now,
tax return.
yeah. But like right now, he's definitely up there. Sato has been impactful. He's been one of the hearts of this team, and to be completely honest, without Sato performing the way he does, Philly isn't as good.
Yeah, true.
Because a lot of this meta has revolved around your Ryan not being dog shit. And he's clearly not been dog shit. And,
Right.
and you look at dudes like Ben Best who aren't the greatest players, but they've looked good. There's a difference between a dude like Ben Best who's getting elevated by the team around him and also by the meta kind of favoring him versus a dude like Sato who is actively making an impact in a really good team. I think there's a difference between being elevated and being the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to Sato, but I don't think by the end of the season we're gonna be like, oh, Sato.
Yay, Sato! Yeah.
Shit, we
for
might.
sure.
I mean, fucking all the best tanks haven't played yet, so
Fair.
like he might be the dude at the end of the league
You're
just
right.
based off sample size.
Yeah.
So, we've hit your Rookie of the Year, we've hit your MVP, but who's your Sophomore of the Year?
I picked Stratus.
Corey, Washington.
The duo. I just figured I'm gonna pick Stratus because him and intern Corey really are just what make Washington that
Work.
that team. So it just has to be that. And I know that you said you have to make sure that Corey really is your Sophomore of the Year, but I think he is.
Yeah, there were some questions where I was like, damn, is Corey really the dude?
But then you think about the rest of the sophomores, and you're like, no one really.
All my favorite
Hits
sophomores haven't played yet.
Yeah.
And Corey is a sophomore. I have him very high in the conversation of best players in the league right now. And I think that's really all you need to be that dude. So if you really look at it, Corey is kind of our only real option in terms of players that are elite at his role and at his level as a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
So fucking shout out to Corey. But play of the year,
Yeah, let's go.
we have different picks.
I picked from this weekend the final overtime push, Paris winning against Philly. Because, as I stated earlier, this was, the definition of, perfectly matched teams that we could have at this moment. It had the same feeling of, Shock versus Vancouver. Everything was, it felt like everything was on the line, and it was so equally matched that when Paris did finally capture the, point and won, you were like, bruh. I mean, you hadn't even watched the whole game.
Yeah.
I had been watching from the beginning, and you just turned it on right at the end. You're like, holy shit, this, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. And I was like, yeah, I've been watching this all day, and it's just been, this kind of just back, forth, perfectly matched. And I thought it was incredibly entertaining for this year.
All right.
For this year.
No,
I'd say.
that's a one a very good pick. However, Dogman's streaming again. He's doing his VOD reviews, so I'm gonna watch those. Also, I don't know. Wrestlemania. I was just thinking Wrestlemania is in a couple weeks. Coronavirus about to destroy WrestleMania.
Xavier's going.
But wait, knowing the WWE as a significantly more evil organization than Blizzard, they're just gonna be like, let the people get sick, damn it.
Nah, they're gonna have
we need money.
They wrestled God, they're just gonna have God come out and wrestle the coronavirus.
What if there was a storyline of a wrestler getting coronavirus?
Anyway.
I don't put that past them.
I don't.
And that's he has to fight through it to beat everyone.
Yeah.
He starts coughing mid-match, but then he fucking muscles through and fucking suplexes the other guy.
You know what I don't put it past? Surefour to come up with the second greatest flank of all time. So, Toronto Defiant. This flank. So it was on Temple of Anubis. Mm-hmm. Surefour, 10,000 IQ dude, right? He had to have thought about this. He's the common factor in all of this shit, right? So Surefour is like, yo,
Surefour will single-handedly cure the corona.
let's hit this flank. Surefour is like, all right, so they went through choke, went left into that small room to go around. Sim teleported through that little window opening.
Yeah.
Where like Genji's will go.
Yeah.
Sim, and then went and then didn't go. They went all the way around, close to point B, to Sim teleport up to the high ground, and then drop to. It was so convoluted, but so perfectly everything I love in a play.
Because you were
thinking, like,
they planted the
what are you
teleporter enough that the other team couldn't get it, so they all got through. And then again, they planted the next teleporter where it's like, there's no fucking way these people are gonna see it, and it's one of those freaking, what was it? Over the roof in Hollywood. Who did that last year?
Oh, Defran.
Defran's over the roof graviton from Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like the 6K tracer pulse bomb. Like, it's just one of those moments where you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
You just know it's cool.
Baby Bay picking Torbjorn and then actually doing Torbjorn. You know, it's one of those moments where you're like, it's the King's Row flank. It's one of those kind of moments where you're just like, oh, now everyone's gonna do this. But I'm glad that it's it's finding ways to use heroes that aren't just, I'm gonna put my teleporter, let me send my balls through the teleporter. Oh man, look at them all die. I'm a great Symmetra player.
Yeah, so that was my play of the year. I'm a big fan of that one.
For sure.
Man, you know how frustrating it was queuing a support with fucking Baptiste Band and no one else knowing how to deal with Symmetra? God damn, I could not. Like, I was stuck on support. If I was playing tank, it would have been alright. But I was playing support, and I'm sitting there as Lucio or Moira, just like, please, team, the turrets. Anyways, week 6.
Yeah, no, for sure. Who's out, who's in?
So, you know, the people who were banned last week, of course, are back. But this week, we have Soldier, Sombra, Winston, and Lucio banned.
And I think...
Holy fuck.
Lucio's the biggest thing.
Lucio's
God,
massive.
Because the rest of them motherfuckers weren't even really being played, but Lucio changes everything.
I think Winston
Thank
being
God.
banned at the same time as Lucio is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, thank God that, Houston doesn't have to play this week.
They would be hurt. They would be hurt.
So, kind of like we did last week, going through the games, and who probably this hero ban will kind of help, and who it will hinder. New York versus Atlanta Reign.
That's the game of the week, goddammit.
Honestly,
that's
yes.
some fun. Because Atlanta, 1-1, what, the 2-1? 1-1? They went 1-1 the first week, then they won, but that game wasn't really a win because they played Boston. So they're effectively 1-1. 2-1 officially, but actually 1-1. They're playing New York, who apparently isn't this awful team that
They're gonna lose to Florida.
No, I already did this rant.
They're losing to Florida.
But it's so fucking alright. So New York is still top 3, right? So you got New York, you got Atlanta, who everybody says should be top 3. Now we're gonna figure it out. This is a rematch. Atlanta apparently has New York's number. Remember last year, they beat New York twice.
That's true.
Atlanta plays New York really well for some reason. New York is vulnerable this year. Clearly. More vulnerable than they have been historically. So this is going to be an A+ game. Edison is in the lineup now.
Finally.
Edison looked as good as you can against a team like Boston.
Yeah.
Last week. But Edison just looked really good. He got that first game in, and it looked very much like Xe, where it's like, yeah, motherfucker, you belong here. So
I'm not too worried about this game, and I don't think any of these picks are going to really affect either of the teams.
See, I think
except for the support line.
No, bro, I completely disagree.
Really?
I think the fact that Lucio is banned, but also that Winston is banned, as Nathan said, is really going to change how teams play, because if you think, all right,
defense will definitely have the advantage.
Yeah, because if you're sitting here, you're thinking, all right, Lucio's banned. Maybe we can go like a like an Ana Mercy dive type thing. But you can't do that because Winston's gone.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Charge in as Reinhardt?
Yeah, and so it's hard to dive because you don't have your actual dive tank, but you can't really...
I know the play.
Rein.
You have a Sigma and a Rein, and the Sigma throws out his shield just far enough that the Rein can charge in behind it, and then he's up there with his shield and everyone comes in behind him. That's the play.
Yeah, but they don't have a Lucio, so they're all going to be slow as shit.
Yep.
And then Ryan's going to get...
Just fucking ran up on.
Like you really realize how important
alley.
Lucio is when you can't play Lucio. But also how important Winston is because Winston enables a lot of these divey comps.
I legitimately believe we may see some Symmetra play. Like, on a bigger scale than we did this week.
I also wonder if we're going to end up seeing, like, Zarya. We're not. But I wonder if teams are going to mess around with Zarya just for the sake of... Why not? It's the first day. Let's see what we can do.
Sure.
Because... That's what's interesting. I think it's really interesting to see what teams do. We might just end up seeing a lot of Ryan Orisa.
Yeah.
But that's defense.
And that, exactly, like, defense will have an advantage.
You can't do that. That's impossible to do on offense.
On attack, you're going to see more Zarya just because you need someone who can damage, sponge, and, like, punish with that.
Yeah.
Some fucking Roadhog for some reason. I don't know what the hell they're going to do.
It's a very interesting meta, and the DPS is... Sombra is a nice utility.
I think Sombra being banned
is important, though.
Is not a big deal, but is a big deal because, like,
Double
again,
shields.
it's going to be very... Yeah.
You can't hack Ryan.
You can't hack Ryan or Orisa.
Yeah, so the shields
or
are
Sigma.
up.
So, like, shields are up, so it's a big deal because you don't have that utility. Soldier, I don't think is actually a big deal.
People only played Soldier this week because Widow was banned.
Yeah, Soldier is great when they're shields when you're, like, a gold player.
Yeah.
But other than that, he's kind of not necessary.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially because you're not losing out on so much healing that it's like, we need fucking... Like,
there's a lot of weird questions that coaches are going to have to figure out in terms of what works, because I think defense and offense are going to be completely different.
But on the other hand, like, is Widow really useful that it's back now? That's definitely going to be, like, more than likely double shield is going to be a big deal.
It might be, because you do want to get that one-hit pick
that's
on a support, and then
it'll be like
open
a Viking grapple up, or
Widow's,
something like that.
Widow's still useful.
Situational.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think Hanzo's going to be significant.
Yeah,
Hanzo. Because you do need somebody to bust. It's a weird meta.
It'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
Just fucking...
And this New York Atlanta game
is going to be so fun.
It's going to be a super good game.
And then we're
actually going to learn a lot.
Sorry. And then we have Spitfire and Philadelphia Fusion.
This is going to be another good game.
Yeah.
This is like, I'm really excited for this because London is a good team and Philly is looking for revenge now that they lost a game. So they're going to be full of, like, piss and vinegar.
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing how teams bounce back from losses, and this was a very...
It was a rough loss.
Yeah, it was like an emotional loss because it was map 5, you basically won the game, and then you lost it out of nowhere. So it'll be interesting to see what Philly does in London. Oh, they're just a scrappy team. Like, they might take 2 maps.
Right. Yeah. Paris Eternal versus Florida Mayhem.
Another fucking good game.
Yeah.
Because Paris is good, but they're not, like, unstoppable, you know?
Yeah, this is... Truly every game this weekend should, except for Boston versus Florida, should be pretty good.
Yeah, but with Paris and Florida, I think a big question of this game is... I think we're going to learn how flexible Florida is.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of... Because it's basically Yaki BQB or Yaki Saya player. But they don't really play Saya player that much, because BQB's just better at, like, McCree and all that.
For sure.
However, Exy is a really, really good McCree. And he might just outplay BQB.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really see there being a situation where Nico, if this does end up being like a Reaper May, just the same comp we've seen all the time, I don't think Nico is that much worse than Yaki at May. And so then you're just down to another situation where you're sitting there thinking, all right,
who's gonna win?
Yeah, like who carries?
Yeah.
Who gets the moment? But there's not really a situation in this game where I'm thinking one team is clearly ahead of the other.
Yeah.
It's just one team.
Hero pools have really helped us, like, not just be like, well, there goes Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto Defiant versus Washington Justice. God, Washington has to be tired. They had a homestand, another game, a homestand, and then now another game.
They're in the thick of it.
They must be exhausted right now.
But Washington, this is another good game.
Yeah, I know.
Even though Toronto is kind of whatever, but they're still exciting to watch. They're still full of really good players. They just end up, losing at the end. And then Washington is surging right now, and they look really good. So I think this is another exciting game. However, I think if Toronto does end up losing again, this is going to be next week on the podcast. We're probably going to open up with,
is Toronto Defiant?
Yeah,
bad?
Do we panic about Toronto because another loss is just
we talked about this.
It's a super bad. It's a bad luck, and every week it's just going to become even more of a bad luck because you should be getting better over time.
Yeah.
And if we don't see signs of improvement, if they're going to lose, they need to lose on like a map 5.
Yeah.
They can't just get 3-0'd. They can't get 3-1. They need to push it to a map 5 to at least give some hope.
Yeah.
Some confidence to people that watch them.
And then London versus Atlanta.
Another good game.
Let's just go ahead and count every game as good, but the only one that's probably going to be mediocre is Boston versus Florida.
Yeah.
Fair.
I think the biggest question is how do both teams bounce back from the first day? Because we saw last week where we were in a situation where teams struggled at the beginning and then ended up figuring things out for the second day. And I wonder if this will be the same case this week, where Atlanta or London struggle that first game and then end up bouncing back in a big way. That's a very important kind of question that we'll be able to see answer. And we'll actually just have more, sample size. I think we really just need sample size for Atlanta. Because a lot of what we're talking about at Atlanta is based off 3 games where, they won one, lost one, and then played Boston. There's not much sample size compared to some of the other teams in terms of just quality time actually watching them play. Then we have Boston, Florida. I think it's going to be like a fine game, but it's not going to be like the game of the week for sure. Oh, yeah. But I do enjoy watching Boston play just because there are moments where it's like, oh, hey, that was neat.
So basically, the overall stance is every game this week is going to be good, and we can't really choose one way or another which team's going to come out on top. Which means our predictions are not going to happen in a way. We can kind of guesstimate who's going to win.
I mean, I'll tell y'all who are going to win. And we can just stop bullshit. New York 3-2. London beating Philly 3-1. Mark that down. Fucking I'm committed
Social
to this.
media guy. Get on that.
London 3-1 versus Philly?
London 3-1 versus Philly. Paris 3-1 versus Florida Mayhem. Like these if you want to put in bets, these are facts, okay? These are not predictions. Toronto versus Washington. We're going Washington 3-2 because Washington ain't that good. London versus Atlanta. Atlanta 3-0 because London is going to be hungover from the night of celebrating when they destroy Philly. And so Atlanta's going to come through, beat them. And then we got Boston, Florida 3-0. These are facts, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear what he said about London versus Philadelphia?
When I'm right and y'all motherfuckers are wrong.
Okay, when
and I take my 10 at work and then I'm like, and then you guys text me like, oh my god, Xavier, you're a prophet. Just remember that I am.
He's had this conversation before.
These are prophetic words, babe.
He's said these words before. What we're going to do is I'm going to take that sound clip and I'm going to, instead of Man Down Under at the beginning of next episode, it's just going to be to the beat of Man Down Under, him saying London 3-1, 3-1-1.
Yeah, and you picked Nene first in a fantasy draft, so I don't know what we're talking right now. Who did you have as your original tank all-star? Beast? London, baby.
Spark is the best team in the Overwatch League.
Listen.
Roll outro.
Outro.